Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the Cyber Gizmo, I'm going to be looking at Purism's PureOS, version 10, right after this. One of the things I did want to look at today was to delve into something I have never reviewed, and that is PureOS. This will be version 10, and that released on October the 2nd of this year. So it hasn't been around too long. So why don't we look at it together and see what it's all about? So Purism is a company that was formed by Todd Weaver back in 2014. What they wanted to do was to provide a platform for hardware and software that was dedicated to freedom, privacy, and security. So there are currently a few models that are out there that support PureOS, and that is Librem 14, the Librem 5, which is a phone, the Librem Mini, which is a NUC-like device, and then a Librem server. And there are 3 different models of that to allow you to get additional computing power when you need that. But PureOS, as I understand it, isn't just for their hardware. It's something that you can use as well. This code name on the current release of Purism 10 is called Byzantium. I think the previous one was called Amber. So, yeah, you might see mention on their site about the repositories for Amber, and of course, those have been updated to Byzantium now. So, what is it? I mean, besides being user-friendly, it is secure. It's meant to have the features that you would expect in a security OS, but it's really designed to protect your security. That is your information, your data, your privacy. And it is based on Debian testing branch, but I think they've made a couple of changes since the last release. They used to have, it was purely a rolling release, and of course the problems you run into with that are that, especially if you're on the testing branch, is that you might run into stuff that isn't going to work, or it breaks something else that it wasn't intended to break. So they decided to try to go for more stability at the expense of being current. So they started this new feature called the point release, which version 10 is a member of that. There is a rolling release version that's available as well. So if you want to continue down the train of doing a rolling release schedule, you can do that by just changing the repos back over to the testing branch. So it's one of the few distros in Linux that is endorsed by the Free Software Foundation. The Free Software Foundation has very strict requirements for to be able to put their stamp of approval on it, in that you have to have absolutely no proprietary software in your distro and no non-free software in your distro. So what they classify as that. And I know that they worked with Purism and the PureOS development team for quite some time in order to iron out all the problems that PureOS had, and the Free Software Foundation wanted to see before they would grant an endorsement, and they have. And the latest release, of course, is October the 2nd, 2021. So 10 really is offering a new baseline and then also some new enhancements. And it is a more stable version of PureOS. So if you were using PureOS in the past, you may have run into some instabilities due to it being a rolling release. So they do have new security and update channels now, so that the updates for PureOS are in their repos and not in anyone else's. They also provide tooling that manages older versions of the TPM chip. I'm sure you've all read about all the problems that Windows 11 is having with older hardware and the workarounds that you have to do in order to get it to run, which I don't know what kind of issues long-term that's going to create. Whether Microsoft will support it or not, I don't know, but there are some issues with they don't support older versions of the TPM, whereas PureOS is attempting to, so that you don't have to ditch your hardware in order to run this. It is a fully auditable release. That's the way they put it. That doesn't mean it has been audited. It just means that the PureOS development team believe that it's in a state where it would be approved by a independent security expert or a group of independent software developers. Yeah, looking for security and looking for quality of code, that kind of stuff. So one of the big things about PureOS is convergence. And what they mean by that is that when you're developing software for the desktop, what if you want to run this on a phone? I mean, your user interface is totally different. The screen size is totally different. You have differences in the ability to rotate the screen. You have things like accelerometers. You have things like GPSs and location. You have alternate networking through the cell phone, through the cell modem, and then through Wi-Fi when it's tethered at home. You can tether it. And all of these things are complications to the way that you would normally write software. So what PureOS has done is they've developed tooling for the developers to try to make that transition between the desktop and the cell phone seamless, so that as you're developing code, you don't have to do a lot of additional coding to make it work in a cell phone environment where instead of having a mouse and a keyboard, you have fingers and a keyboard that pops up on the screen. So quite a bit different. And then you have gestures and you have different swipes and so forth before you can have it do different things. So yeah, it's a tricky business to get both of those things to work. Not to mention the fact that you are running on two different hardware platforms. Your desktop typically is going to be some kind of x86 environment versus one that is on a phone, which is probably going to be ARM-based architectures, or perhaps soon maybe RISC-V, that we'll start seeing those chips as well, if we see any at all, due to the shortages in the hardware manufacturing and delivery in the supply chain. But what are their hardware requirements? So these are recommended, not the minimums. So 2-core Intel or AMD X6, you have to be a 64-bit. Memory about 3 gig. They as a minimum say 1 gig. Storage is 10 gig at a minimum, 15 gig is recommended. Then your graphics card, it will be an Intel base, of course, because NVIDIA is proprietary drivers and PureOS does not permit those to be in their libraries. So yeah, same with Wi-Fi. A Therios chipset is the only one supported that I'm aware of. So if you're getting into things like other manufacturers of chipsets for Wi-Fi, you may run into issues. And if they are using third-party, non-free, or they're using proprietary drivers, those that you will not find, and you may have problems trying to run that on your hardware. So it is, I mean, the operating system and their devices, it's one of those things where in engineering, if you're trying to build something that is compatible with one another, you start at the baseline for both the hardware and the software, and you build them up together. That's called an engineering chain. So yeah, if you don't do that, when you get to the end, it's like building a bridge and not measuring, and starting at both ends and not measuring where you are, and then ended up in the middle with one of them, 10 feet away. I have seen that happen before on fairly large projects where they got out to the middle of the bridge and then, oops. Sometimes that's why you see that zigzag in the middle of the bridge as they make a correction. So yeah, not the time to discover that you're off. But yeah, it does happen in engineering problems. So you want to start them together and finish them together so that the changes are in both at the same time. Desktops are GNOME 3.38.5. However, there's also a KDE Plasma 5.20.5 that is available, although it's not directly selectable from the website. And I'll show you during the course of this video how you can get access to that. So I'm not sure the reason why, but whatever that reason might be, there is a way to get to it and download it, and I'll show you that today. So as far as apps this would be the GNOME version. So as far as apps are concerned, it does come with quite a few as a baseline to get you kind of started. LibreOffice, of course, is there, and that's version 7. There's also Cheese, which is allows you to take, use your camera on your computer to be able to display video or whatever, hook into, I guess, whatever online system that you're trying to get your mug in for video conferencing. GNOME Web is a kind of a very lightweight WebKit based browser. So you can start out with that. And then you can go to the website. In the wiki, there are some FAQs that go through different setups based on maybe you want the Firefox browser, maybe you want Firefox with Tor, maybe you want Tor, but they have the explanation in there. As far as something else, you may be on your own with that one. So the thing is, though, just remember that if it is third party, it is not free, and it is proprietary. Sorry, you're not going to be able to find that code there. So Thunderbird is present, and also Tilex for the terminal. There's Deja Dupe for backup, and Rhythmbox. Polari is the IRC client, and there's a lot of other stuff that's available with the system. One of the things in the security realms, though, is the LibreKey. The LibreKey allows you to store credentials. It also allows you to decrypt an encrypted disk automatically, so that if you insert the key, it's gonna send the signal to the processor to say, hey, this is the credentials to use to decrypt that particular drive. I don't know if that works on every single distro, every single piece of hardware that's out there. It may be just for their particular versions of their hardware platforms. I do not know. But it does allow you to store credentials for websites and other places as well. One other feature it has is it will look at the BIOS to see if it's been tampered with. And if it has been tampered with, it will turn red. If it hasn't, it finds that your BIOS is okay and hasn't been tampered, it turns green. So you see a green light that turns on to let you know that. You can continue to use it, of course, but probably not a good idea. There are facts for how to install the Tor browser, the Firefox with Tor. There's also FIDO UTF support that's available if you want to install that software. And of course, that allows you to integrate two-factor authentication with websites. You also have an integrated Nextcloud with the file manager. I don't know if that applies to KDE. It may only apply to GNOME, not sure. And then it prevents device tracking by, untrusted access points. So if you are taking your laptop or your phone into coffee shops or restaurants that have public Wi-Fi, then yeah, it prevents that from tracking your access to your location. So there's that. They do maintain their own repositories. And like I said, again, free and open source applications, proprietary and non-free, are not available. Downloads are available as x86-64 ISO files for both AMD and Intel. But I did not see an ARM version present on either the GNOME version of the system or on the KDE version of the system. So, yeah, but if you want that, you can go to the Docker Hub, and their official container image has one for x86 and ARM64. So there is support up there for it, but not directly installed. Now, I suppose you could always compile, but yeah, that would be a lengthy process, I'm sure. So, so let me take a few minutes. I'll set up and we'll go and install this and see what we end up with. What I've done here is gone ahead and installed it. I really don't think it's necessary to go through the installation steps. It's very similar to the Debian 11 version of Calmaris. The only difference between this and Debian 11 is that PureOS does require an encrypted disk. So you cannot bypass that. You can turn it off and it just won't let you go forward. If you turn it on and fill out your password, it lets you go forward. So yeah. Okay. So I'll go ahead and log in. Like I said, I have already installed this. Now, one thing I did see during the install that you may see is that when you go to reboot after you have finished the copying of your ISO file to the hard drive, it will ask you to remove the CD-ROM. And when you hit enter to do that, it will eject it, but then it starts throwing errors, and the only way to stop it is to just shut down the VM. So you may encounter that. I did, certainly. I would say that's a bug. Yeah, I would. Okay. So when you come into it for the first time, this is what you're greeted with on the GNOME side. I'll bring up the KDE side today before we get out of here and show you that as well. But so now I have modified the look and feel a little bit. Normally it's white, so I did turn the dark mode on, so it's a little easier on my eyes, and I'm sure it might be a little easier on yours too. So let's take a look at it. So I guess the first place to look is, what are we running for a kernel? 510.0.8, and that was compiled on 9/23/2021. So yeah, there is instructions on the site for if you want 5.13, and I suppose it's going to be the same if you want some other release of it as well. But I did notice the 5.13 is available. Okay, so they do have their own version of the OS release, even though this is based on Debian. What else we got? Now, I did have to install HTOP. I did have to install NeoFetch, and I did have to install Get. Those are not present on the system. Glances does not fall into the category of free software. So, yeah, unfortunately. So, as far as the operating system is concerned, 650 meg of memory in use out of 4 gig. Now, of course, that's going to go up. 101 tasks, that seems a little high to me. And yeah, the load average is pretty low. It's not, the processor isn't really doing much. So 1,770 packages installed, and we're at Bash 5.1.4. And then I think the last thing to take a look at would be how much disk it's taking. So as you can see, my root file system, which is right here, is taking 4.3 gig. The boot is taking about 60 meg. Not a lot. That's right here. Let's go ahead and get Linus down. Oh, okay. It's already here. I had forgotten I had downloaded it already for this. All right, we'll go ahead and run it out then. Should only take a couple minutes for this to run. If you see my other videos, you know what I do with this. This is a baseline that I normally use to assess how much hardening I need to do the system. And that kind of gives me a gauge too in comparing distros of how much work it's going to take to harden the system up to a baseline. Now, is it secure? No, but this is a good start. At least it reminds you to install packages that'll help you, monitor the system. Hardening index 65, that's pretty typical with Debian right now. And then I think the real problem here is the firewall is installed, but there's no rules active on it. So warnings are bad. Suggestions are just, okay, here's some things you need to do. But we're not gonna, it'll knock you down a little bit on the grading, but the warnings really knock you down. So 65, we've got some work to do. As far as the other stuff in here, I had looked at this already earlier. There's nothing in here that's really earth-shattering. These are all the same kinds of things that I would see normally after a new install of the system, and it's a good reminder of what you need to do. And of course, this isn't finished. I would not walk away from your system going, "Oh, I got to 95%. I'm done." No, I wouldn't say that. You're not done, anybody. And one of the things that I will share with you on Friday is some of the work I've been doing. And learning some additional security software on my own, and then applying some of that software to analyze my machines here at home in my lab. So as far as the system is concerned, this is the GNOME web browser, and it's pretty basic. I mean, yeah, I guess this is fine to download a real browser. No, I mean just download a browser. But I don't know if I'd be comfortable using this for any length of time. The default search let's see. I guess we could go over to the PureOS site and I can show you where to find the KDE stuff right now. So you'll see this download button, and when you hit it, it'll take you here and then you'll press download Byzantium, and right away you'll get a 404 error. Let me widen this out a bit so I can see the entire URL. The problem is right here, 10.0.2, and also here. These have been updated to 10.10, and the link on the site is not updated with it. So I'm just going to cross that off, and we'll start up a path above it since they allow me to browse the file system. So GNOME is right here. There's GNOME OEM, and then there's Plasma right here. So if you're looking for the Plasma ISO file, it'll be in this one. And then I'll show you, this is the date when it was last built. And then there's the ISO, there's the checksum, and there's checksum for SHA 256. So it's about 2 gig for that one. And then if you want GNOME, same thing, go to the date and ISO, and there's your check right here. So yeah, about 2 gig as well to download it. And then you can play around with it. Those are the only 2 desktop environments that I have seen, is just GNOME and KDE Plasma. As far as some of the other software packages here, yeah, you have the software update, and then I went into one of the things that you'll probably be interested in is what is the packages actually in here? Are they dev? Are they Flatpaks? Are they snap? What are they? So I looked at a bunch of these, and they're all of them coming from the main. So that would be in all likelihood a dev package, since those are coming out of the normal repositories. I did do a check, and I'll run it here again for you to see if snapd is even installed. It's available, but it's not installed. So I guess if you want that, you can, I don't know what their feeling is on Snap and how much testing they've done with it, but the package is there. And of course you could get Flatpaks too, but not through the store. I didn't see any Flatpaks available here at all. As far as, oh yeah, I was curious. When they say that this has an integrated, I suppose I'd probably have to have it installed. So what I'm looking for here is Nextcloud is supposed to be integrated into the file finder, the file manager. So I don't see anything that allows me to configure the server, which is what the client does. It allows you to go in and configure, which port, what host name, and then it will then start a sync operation between the server and your client. I think that's all I had. I'm just going to shorten this up a little bit. That's pretty much all I had today. Hope you enjoyed this video today on PureOS. One of the other things that's kind of cool about Purism's laptops and servers is if you don't want PureOS, you can have it configured with cubes. And it'll come to you shipped with cubes installed on it, which that's a time saver. That's a big time saver. So again, hope to see you all on Friday. I'm going to do a live show on Friday. Hope to see you there. Take care and bye for now.